What's up, guys? Welcome back to Common Sense Trucking. So this is part 2 of what questions to ask when leasing your equipment on with a company. So obviously there's a part 1 to this that I really want you guys to check out. It's got some really good questions that you need to be asking these companies when you call them. So we're going to piggyback right off of that video and throw a few more things in here that I think everybody should be asking when they call these companies to lease on. Not enough guys are asking these questions, and they get into a company and then they are immediately looking for, greener pastures, when some of this stuff you can kind of find out just from a phone call there at first. So a couple of things we talked about in the last video: fuel surcharge, profit splits, dispatching, insurance. Kind of briefly got into insurance. I'm gonna get a little more into it on this video, not too terribly much, but like I said, there's some really good stuff in part 1, and then we're gonna pretty much finish up everything in part 2. There's probably some things that I'm forgetting, so if there are, please don't hesitate to comment on this video, comment on the last video. I do look at them, so if there's something that you have a specific question about or want me to go even more in depth, if I can't explain it a little better in the comment, I'll make a whole video on it just for you. So I'm out. This is for you guys that are out there. This is from the office side of trucking. So the side that almost likes to gatekeep some of this information and keep this a secret. I'm an open book. I'm not here to persuade you guys into doing something you don't want to do. I'm here to give you the information from the office side and hopefully answer some of the questions that you guys have probably been asking whoever you're leased to forever and just can't get the answers to. So without any more, let's go right on into it. Like I said, I was going to do a minute ago. So let's start with deductions, right? So I see a lot of settlements. I've had a lot of settlements sent to me with questions, which it's like just a blanket deduction, and there's not anything really itemized on that settlement. Get an itemized settlement from whoever you're leased to. That settlement should be black and white, as simple as you can make it, to the penny on your deductions. Physical damage insurance, bobtail insurance, rider's insurance policy if applicable, ELD charges, the tablet, prime example here. If you buy a tablet through a company, I want to see on that settlement, hey, what do I owe on this tablet? And is that my tablet after I pay for it? Because if you're going to work for a company for 3 years, why in the world are you going to make a $50, $75, $100 a week tablet deduction that never goes away? So it's not rent. It's I want that tablet when I pay for it, right? So itemized deductions, get it down to the penny on every single thing. Full transparency. You don't work for this company. You work with this company. You're an owner operator. So you're paying this company for a service. I want to know what I'm paying for every week, and I want to know where that money's going to the penny, because we're both in business here, right? So if I'm the driver and you're the company, we're both in business. Okay, so we have to look at it that way, right? So itemized deductions, make sure everything is to the penny and it stays accurate. It's a big one to ask right off the bat. Do you have an itemized deduction that I'm going to have a settlement every single week to look at, that I see, and I can look over every single thing to the penny every single week? Okay. So kind of coming off of that, direct deposit, this is simple. Ask them if they do direct deposit. Believe it or not, there's still a lot of companies out here that aren't doing direct deposits. You got to come in and pick up a check. Smaller carriers. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I would want to know. So make sure there's a direct deposit. Then how often is that deposit being made? Obviously I would want for it to be weekly, or is it after each load? Personal preference, kind of how we do it here too. I would want my week to flow out, get all my fuel deducted, throughout the week. Fuel cards, you want to make sure a company has fuel cards too, but you want to get all your fuel out, and then, hey, that next week, let me go ahead and get a full deposit for that entire collective week versus each load, right? Now that just comes down to personal preference at that point, but you want to make sure you're not getting paid every 2 weeks for something, that happened a couple weeks back. So how often is that direct deposit being made? A lot of guys will call me and ask, who do you haul for? Now, it's hard for me to just sit there and spout off a customer list on who we haul for. We haul out direct for a lot of customers. I don't like to just start spouting names off. You don't know what everybody's ulterior motive is. So when you guys call these companies and ask that, and these companies might be a little standoffish about giving that to you, It's not that they're being secretive. I wouldn't think, just to you. It's just as a whole, as the company, you don't want to just be throwing, these things out there. Now, a lot of the guys that call me are referrals from current drivers. So I know that they pretty much already have a rundown, I'm sure, of most everybody we haul direct for, or they meet drivers that, some of our guys at these shippers, and that's how they get my contact information. So I understand that. So but you want to get an idea, right? Especially if you are looking at a company in the area that you live, odds are you're going to know kind of who they haul for. But something to ask is, what do you haul and where are you hauling? So myself, and if anybody's being, secretive about answering that question, that's a massive red flag to me, because to me, that means they don't really have probably a localized customer base that's going to be able to, if they can't say, hey, look, we haul a ton of freight out of this area going to this area, or, or this area going to this area, or kind of tell you what they haul the most of. Most of this channel is going to be geared around flatbed because that's what we do. So, you should be able to ask a company, say, hey, look, what do you haul the most of? Well, you can spout off, okay, well, we haul a lot of coils, or we haul a ton of sheet steel. Well, you as a driver, as soon as you hear that and you know where that company is located, you're probably going to be able to say, okay, well, I bet you they're hauling a lot for so-and-so, or, whoever that may be. Or they say lumber or plywood or whatever it may be. You that's been out on the road and been loading at these places, you're going to be able to say, yeah, I bet you that's what they're hauling, or who they're hauling for. So don't come out and say, hey, who do you haul for directly? Just start saying, what are you hauling and where are you taking it? That kind of will answer that question for you, and it won't sound like you're really trying just to gouge at them and find out who they're hauling for. Another good one is, what specific modes do you haul? So sometimes companies haul some dry van and some flatbed, or they might haul some flatbed and some reefer. They might haul a little bit of both, or move things around. I don't like that. I think a company, it's fine, but for me, I want all of my eggs in one basket. I know that sounds bad, but as a company, when I can focus 100% of my time on flatbed freight, that's all I want to mess with. I don't care to mess with any reefer. I don't care to mess with any dry van. There's companies out there that haul all the modes and are great at it. For me, though, I want to go to a company that's going to be dedicated on whatever mode that I'm hauling, right? So if I'm a flatbed truck driver, I don't want a company that's got, 100 guys leased on the dry van and 25 flatbedders. I want a company that's got 125 flatbedders, and that's it. They don't haul anything but flatbed freight. That's all they know. They eat, sleep, breathe flatbed. So ask that, hey, do you guys do any dry van, or are you pretty much all flat? Or do you guys, if you're a dry van driver, do you guys do any reefer, or is it all dry van? Find that out, and get at least a good idea. That way you're not going into a company that might prioritize another mode over yours, right? So moving on here, how large is your customer base? I think that's a fair question to ask. How many guys are you hauling direct for? And is it for, 2 or 3 customers? Is it 1 or 2? Is it 15 or 20? Because customers will get slow. Every customer at some point of the year is going to have a slow period. You want to know, is there a backup plan when that one customer gets slow? Because there's a lot of companies that have one customer that they haul for, and they haul, a lot of times it's one singular lane, brokered loads back. That's fine, but I want to know that I've got some options. And not to mention, if I go to load somewhere and I don't care to load there anymore, I want to know, hey, look, can I start loading over here or move on to somewhere else, to haul freight out of, because I really don't care to haul out of there. So it's a great question to ask, and I think it's fair enough for any company to answer that and say, we haul out of so many, 20 customers, and they're out of this area or these 2 states or whatever it may be. That's where we're hauling. That's who we're hauling for. Moving on right here, do they work with many brokers? The reason I want to ask that question is I want to hear the answer, because the answer that I want to hear from do you work with many brokers is I want to hear yes. Now, at first you're going to think, well, why in the world would you want a company that's dealing with brokers at all? But hear me out. If they're dealing with a lot of brokers, but you've already asked the question of how many customers they haul out of or what they're hauling, kind of getting an idea of that customer base first, then I want to know that they deal with a ton of brokers, because I don't want them telling me, go out there, bounce back for another one. Go out there, bounce back for another one. I want them reloading me out there and keeping that trailer loaded, coming, whether it's coming back or whether it's making a loop, I don't care, but I want to know. Now, another reason I want them to answer that question with yes is there's a lot of companies that are blacklisted from a lot of brokers. See, we don't want to talk about that. We love talking about the brokers we won't work with. We love talking about the brokers we hate and that we don't want to haul for or whatever, but nobody likes to talk about the brokers that won't load you, right? So if they're a pretty standoffish, no, we don't really work with a lot of brokers. No. Why? Is it because the brokers won't work with you? Or is it because you don't have a lot of freight? Or is it because you want to just to seem like, we have a big customer? There's a lot of different answers. So the answer I want to hear is, yeah, we do. And if it was me, I would want to hear, okay, yeah, well, we got to reload you somehow, right? We got a backhaul. So if we don't have something over there, then yeah, we're going to get a brokered load backhaul, and we're going to try to make as much money as we can coming back to stay moving. That's the answer I want to hear. So I don't want to hear an immediate, no, man, I hate brokers. We're not going to work with those. Why wouldn't you, if you want to make sure you get, you want good money coming out, as good as you can get coming back, to keep as much money on that truck as you possibly can. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is ask them to give you an example of a week. You might ask for a redacted settlement. Okay. Ask for something that'll show you kind of what these guys are seeing. What does that settlement look like every week? What do those deductions look like? I don't need to see somebody's name. I don't need to see how much money they make, or I don't need to see how much they're paying for their insurance. I don't need to see any of that, but I want to see what that settlement looks like. So I want to see exactly what those lines are showing all the way down to the bottom. That way I don't see something that really doesn't make sense to me. I want to know the answers to that. And I want to be familiar with that settlement before I ever sign those papers leasing my equipment on. So that's the last one I want to talk about. So to kind of recap this little shorter video that from what we had, well, it's actually not much shorter than what the first part was. But we're going to talk about pay settlements. We're going to talk about itemized deductions. We're going to ask what and where they haul. Now, unless they want to give you a list of customers, that's fine. I just know I'm a little shy to just throw all that out there. So ask what and where they haul to kind of get an idea on some lanes. Are they specific to one mode? How large is that customer base? And ask to give an example of a normal week for a driver, right? So make sure to go look at part one. Ask every single question that I put there on part one, and ask every single question that I'm putting here on part two. I promise you that's going to open up a lot of information to you as a driver looking to lease on that normally you probably wouldn't have even thought to ask, right? So again, this is stuff that I've compiled over Lord knows how many drivers calling me and asking me about our company, and the stuff that I know that they end up asking later. And not everybody's asking everything, but they're asking a few of these questions later. Well, you might as well get all this information up front, so you don't think there's any secrets on the back end after you get leased on. And every question that I brought up on part one, and every question I've brought up here in part two, if there's a question that any company is acting really funny about answering, or is kind of acting a little shady, or gets a little aggravated that you've even asked, it's a major red flag. I'm not saying rule them out, but you better be careful. Be really, really careful, because your livelihood depends on that company just as much as that company depends on you. So I'll have another video up probably next week. What we're going to talk about next, we're going to get into some financials. So a lot of this stuff's going to be boring to a lot of guys. I don't care. This is stuff we need to, that y'all need to see, stuff we need to be talking about, stuff that I hope I start getting some questions about. Specifically next week, we're going to talk about the difference, payment differences and pricing differences between lease purchase payments and dealership notes, and why some guys prefer to go lease purchase and some guys prefer to go dealership. Some guys prefer just a standard lease or rent. And there's pros and cons for every single one of them. So we're going to talk about the differences. That way you're making some informed decisions when you go to get your equipment or just to go get new equipment. So like I said, that'll be posted next week. I'm going to try to keep this 1 to 2 videos a week trend going. I've got a massive list of stuff that we're going to keep talking about every single week. and hopefully again start getting some comments on some stuff that I need to be adding to these videos. So I'm looking forward to it, and we'll catch y'all next time.